today's topic is about the changes in the ECBA exam syllabus and the pattern. So over the next around 40 minutes, we are going to discuss about what are the changes and what is the implication for you if you're preparing for the certification exam. Okay, so before we begin, just a quick kind of shout out to me saying what is your current role and where are you? Just type in the chat window, or if you want to speak, you can unmute and speak.
Hi, sir. Myself, Vikas. I'm from Hyderabad. 7 years work experience with the sales manager in real estate industry. So I'm looking for career transition. I'm from non-IT. So trying for ECBA examination through Techcanvass.
Okay.
Hi sir, this is Prasanna.
Yes,
Currently,
Prasanna.
I'm working with the public sector bank. I have 4 years of experience into public sector bank. Previously, I was working with Cognizant and Mindtree. Altogether, I have 8 years of IT experience and 4 years into public sector. Now, I'm looking into transition into a BA role.
Okay. Others, you can also type in the chat window. That is okay. I just want to see what kind of a mix we have today. Okay. Let's start the webinar and let's start with the understanding as to what is changed, why this has changed, and what is the impact on the preparation part. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at what are the changes, why these changes are done. As per the IIBA website, they're talking about job readiness improvement for the learners. But there's a major shift in terms of the focus, not in terms of syllabus content, but the focus actually brings about a lot of changes in the overall scenario for the preparation. Okay, so I'll explain that in a bit as to how does it affect. So nothing changes in terms of that. ECBA is still the foundation level certification for business analysts, and it actually validates your foundational knowledge in business analysis. And typically, it is meant for people who are trying to transition to a business analyst role from either a non-BA role or from a non-IT. Okay, so why these changes are being done? So one of the things which IIBA is talking about is it can help in getting you better prepared for jobs. Why it is going to happen, I'll explain later. More emphasis on practicality of the concepts rather than just having a conceptual knowledge. So they want you to learn how to apply certain business analysis activities, the practices, and what happens in a real life. This is more aligned to the industry needs rather than a certification, typical certification. And because of all of this, it is going to enhance the applicability in the industry, and you'll feel better, more confident in terms of facing the job interviews. So a couple of things which are pretty fundamental changes in terms of how the entire structure is changed. One, instead of knowledge recall, knowledge recall doesn't mean memory recall from the memory. It's the understanding of the knowledge. So saying what is business analysis, what is requirements change, something like that. That is the original ECBA, which is even valid now. Now it is going to saying, how will you apply something? How will you do something? How will you make the changes? What happens if customer is asking you to change something in the application? What happens? What do you do? That's the fundamental shift. That is one. Number two, there is something called business analysis core concepts model. So if you look at BABOK, it is there in BABOK and it is there in each knowledge area. Okay. So, but it stops there. I mean, it is there in every knowledge area. It is there in every part of the syllabus, but it is not used the way it should be. Okay. So we'll look at BACCM, what it is and why it is. Don't type anything on the screen, please. Then exam structure is also going to change, meaning the number of questions, the time taken to solve the number of questions is going to change. So, which also includes the type of questions which you're going to get in the exam. So, the AI companion, I'll tell you how does it work. Is that, let's say you are in the conversation, you just stepped out for a couple of minutes, you want to come back and catch up. The AI companion will help you catch up. It will also, if you want to ask something which is being discussed, what I'm explaining, it can explain you that again. Just ask it to explain, re-explain. It will do it. Okay. So it is pretty helpful. Okay. So now what is changing? So how many of you have seen BABOK or have some idea about what is business analysis body of knowledge? Okay. One person. Okay. Okay. So then accordingly, I'll explain in a slightly different way. So business analysis body of knowledge. Let me show you the business analysis body of knowledge. It's a book. So this is the business analysis body of knowledge called BABOK. This is the latest book. And for all the IIBA certifications, you have to study. Okay. So this was the only source for studying and preparing for IIBA certifications. Okay. So this entire book is based on 6 knowledge areas. Okay. So basically what they have done is they said business analysis is nothing but it's about 6 things, which is then converted into something called knowledge. So for example, business analysis, planning and monitoring. So as a business analyst, one of the tasks which you do is you plan and monitor the business analysis activity. So this is called knowledge area. Okay. So the entire syllabus of BABOK was based on this particular concept. Okay. So you read it and you understand it. And based on that, the questions would come. Okay. So knowledge areas had 100% weightage. In this book itself, there is something called business analysis key concepts. There are 6 things: change, need, solution, stakeholder value, and context. Okay. Now these 6 things were mentioned here. They said it's very important in terms of how to talk about business analysis, but it didn't go beyond this. Okay. So BABOK does not talk too much about these 6 terms. So that was the old syllabus. Okay. So there were knowledge areas and that's all. You have to study the knowledge areas and techniques and that's all. But now what they said is that what they believe is that these are really important concepts. So the first thing which has changed is the knowledge area wise distribution of weightage is now okay. So now these 6 things have 60% weightage together. So that 6 elements, each one of them has 10% weightage. That makes it 60%. Okay. So these are called domains. There are 6 domains. So change, need, they have become pretty big ones now. Okay. So you have to really study them hard in terms of what you're going to master and then use in the exam. In addition to that, there were 3 other things which have been added, which were not there previously, and which I feel is very, very good step. Now they have said, okay, there should be 20% weightage to understanding what is business analysis. So look at all of you, majority of you are coming from non-IT background. Your first area of understanding should be what is exactly business analysis. A lot of time should be spent on realizing what is business analysis, how is it conducted, what should you do when you are talking to the clients. So based on that, it has got a weightage of 20%. That means 20% questions, 1/5 of the questions will come from this chapter, which I really like. That this is something which is really important. And this also includes core concepts. Okay. So core concept is distributed in multiple chapters. We'll come to that. Next is mindset for effective business analysis. Meaning, once you have understood what is business analysis, how is it conducted, now you need to know what is the best way to approach business analysis. What should be the mindset? So this is going to deal more with the softer side of business analysis, meaning how to deal with stakeholders, what should be approach, and so on. That has a weightage of 14%. These two itself is more than 1/3, which is very, very important. So this makes your task easier because in the previous ones, there were certain things which were completely, out of the world in terms of how a new business analyst will ever try to even if they try to understand certain things from the BABOK, they will not be able to. So I always have a tough time in explaining certain things like requirements architecture. Okay, this is something which is not even senior business analyst. So that's a correction in the overall focus of the ECBA exam. Third is implementing business analysis, meaning how the project and the business analysis activities are going to be done. Okay. These three are 40% and these six are 10% each. That is 60%. So 60 plus 40 makes it 100%. Okay. So that's the fundamental change in terms of syllabus. But that also brings into focus a new book called Business Analysis Standard version 2. Okay. So now the version 2 has come in. Version 1 was in last, now version 2 has come in, which is nothing but is going to describe these three areas. Okay. So a majority of business analysis standard goes into explaining these three knowledge areas. And the remaining part is into describing or providing a one-page knowledge of the tasks of the previous BABOK. So essentially what they are trying to do is that they have built this as a single source. At least that is the attempt. So this is the standard. Okay. Now, if you go here, as you can see, the table of content shows understanding business analysis, mindset for effective business analysis, implementing business analysis. These are the three major chapters. And then there are various activities of business analysts which are described in the remaining of the chapters. Okay. So there are only two things, nothing else. Okay. But having said that, this is too short for preparing for an exam. So here things are explained in just one page. And I don't think that is sufficient for anyone to understand how this works. Okay. So you have to still go back to BABOK and study this chapter from BABOK. Okay. So these are some of the things which are referring to the old guide, which is BABOK, which is this portion, this entire portion from page number 23 to page number 52. So 30 pages, each task in one page. Okay. But this is very, very short version. Detailed version is available in BABOK, like Plan Business Analysis Approach. It is here. Plan Business Analysis Approach. And this is a more detailed version. It spans over 24 to some 5-6 pages at least it will be. It's a little more actually. Yeah. It's around 10. Okay. So the standard guide actually refers to the BABOK. Standard provides you a shorter version of everything from BABOK. Okay. So in the future, what IIBA is going to do is they are going to only update the standards. Okay. Now BABOK is not going to be updated anytime soon. That is the most likely scenario. Okay. So there will be no BABOK version 4. It will be primarily based on the business analysis standard. Okay. So these are the two primary study materials. Okay. There is one more thing which you can look at, which is exam blueprint. It's available on IIBA website, but I'm just showing you quickly. So this guide shows you the syllabus. This is the new syllabus, 100%. Okay. And on the IIBA page, you also have sample set of questions, which will come in a bit. Okay. So now instead of reading one book, you're going to read two books. Okay. So basically, it's our job has become a little more complicated in terms of if you start trying to figure out how to teach both the books, it will take months. Okay. So we are working on it. It's almost now ready. The blueprint in terms of how we are going to teach ECBA syllabus in a more concise manner, so that you don't have to kind of get completely confused with the vast amount of information and how to actually start, where to start preparing for the exam. So that part we are sorting out. It's almost done. Now the new content is getting uploaded. So this is just a revision of the 9 domains. As you can see here, this totals 100%. So one of the most important things which has happened is the focus on core concept. Okay. So these 6 concepts are very important. Okay. So as I mentioned in previous exam syllabus, these 6 things were not covered, not given due importance. But these are extremely important, and we actually cover them in detail. Otherwise, even in the current syllabuses. Let me give you some idea as to what it is, because they actually explain the entire business analysis very nicely. If you look at these 6 things and you try to understand how are these important in terms of the business analysis as an act. Okay. So let's say, for example, let's think of a scenario saying that there's an insurance company. You'll have to give me 1 second. Yeah, sorry. So think of an insurance company which is having a 20% drop in the renewals. Okay, in the quarter 1. So we are just getting through the quarter 1 of the financial year, which is the last day of the quarter 1. Now they're seeing that the renewals of insurance policies has dropped. Right now they need help. So they need help in solving this particular problem. Right. So the first thing is, do they really need to solve? Why? Because there are certain problems where the investment will be less than the, right? If I invest 100 rupees and I get 90 bucks, should I do that investment? Obvious answer is no, I shouldn't be doing it. Okay. So the need only comes in because there is a value attached, right? So now two things, it's quite obvious right in the beginning of the discussion with the client that you need to solve it because there is a value if you solve it, which means that 20% drop is worth these many, maybe millions of dollars or billions of dollars. We don't know. So there is a need to solve it. Why? Because there is a value attached to solving that particular problem, right? So as you start discussing the problem with the client, these two things automatically come into picture. That's where things start. And then once you understood what is the need and also get into the problem solving mode, saying what is the root cause. So you can figure out certain things. Maybe the UI is bad. People are finding it difficult to renew it from the interface provided, or the notifications are not good, right? If my renewals are coming, I should get 2-3 notifications. People are not getting the notifications, so they forget about it. You don't know right now. These are just possibilities. So you figure out what are the reasons for this drop in the renewal process, renewal of policies. Okay. How do you figure out? By talking to the stakeholder, the operations manager, the people who are part of the sales. They will be able to tell you why this is, or at least they can provide you data through which you can figure it. Okay. So now you can see that three things are coming quite naturally in entire discussion. Then you start working with the solution designer and the technical architect to figure out, okay, how do we solve it? Once you figure out what is the problem, solving it is much easier. So you consider solution. Maybe we can build a new SMS-based notification system as well as a WhatsApp-based notification system. That's part of the solution, right? So that's the solution. That needs to be developed. So that's how the software development process starts, right? So that's the solution part. Then it is possible that this company for which the renewals are dropping is a very fairly new company, okay? Which means the number of people using it or the overall revenue of the companies is smaller. So they will say, okay, let's figure out ways where we can have more economical solution. We can't afford to spend tens of millions of dollars on this solution. But it's a large company, right? Max Life Insurance or the bigger ones, which are hundreds of billions of dollars. They don't mind whatever it costs, but they want exact solution which fits into their. What is this? This is called context. So based on the context and the background, the solution might be different for one company versus the other. Another example to understand context is if, let's say, for example, somebody is trying to buy a customer management software. So there are hundreds of options. The most common one is Salesforce. So Salesforce costs roughly around $30 a month per user. I have 10 people in my company and only 3 people are going to use that. They're into marketing and sales, which means I have to spend less than $100 a month to get to the CRM system of a good quality, right? I would not go to buy something which is going to take 6 months to implement and maybe another few hundreds and thousands of dollars for license. But if, let's say, a big bank is trying to implement a CRM solution, they will never go for Salesforce because their primary worry would be the data is on the. So the context changes, the solution changes. That is very important for you to understand. And next, the last thing which also happens, part of the business analysis activities is to manage changes. So whatever you do, the changes are imminent, absolutely imminent in terms of you cannot avoid changes in the system. So when changes are coming your way, you need to figure out ways to handle changes. So there are change management processes which are used in the organizations to manage changes effectively, right? Now, if you see this entire thing, you realize that these 6 things are so closely connected to business. In fact, this is something which is the primary way to discuss what is business analysis. That is how it was introduced in the previous syllabus. I'm talking now it as previous because it's just 21 days now. So, but in the new syllabus, these 6 factors get 10% each as a weightage. That is 60% weightage. Okay, and that's a very, very important change. Another thing which also was a concern and raised by many people with IIBA is that there are 50 techniques in BABOK and a lot of them are outdated. They're not used at all in the industry. So why don't you kind of reduce it for at least for the entry level business analyst so that the workload or the load of the preparation comes down. So they said, okay, now there are just 20 techniques which are part of this. These are the 20 techniques. Okay. So that means instead of studying 50, you now have to just use 20. Another thing which is part of the syllabus is the competencies part. So competencies earlier were just 5% weightage overall in 100%. The weightage is still 0%. It doesn't say any weightage, but you'll find that in doing whatever activities you are doing, competencies do come into picture. And they have specifically mentioned that competencies or competencies related questions will be asked as part of the question. It is going to be there. So you need to study at least conceptually about these competencies. So there's 6 competencies as you can see. These are the groups. Under that there are multiple. Okay. So this is like a conceptual diagram or you can call it a scope model. So business analysis standard defines domains. BABOK guide defines tasks. And these two have now been defined by activities. So since one person, none of you have seen BABOK, so I'll not give a reference of BABOK. But this is a change in terms of the way you have to study these things. Okay, so what is activity? Activity is nothing but what actually you do as a business analyst. Okay, so whether you are trying to identify stakeholders, that's an activity. Whether you're trying to define the goal of the project, that's an activity. That's an example of okay. So what you will have is 9 domains, multiple activities, and each activity will require certain techniques to be used so that you can perform those activities. And it requires competencies to be able to perform these activities. So that is the structure of the overall syllabus, which means, let me reiterate that. So each domain has activities. Each activity, if you want to perform an activity, you need a technique, right? Without technique, you can't, you can still do it without a technique, but that will be not the most efficient way to do. And to be able to use the technique or to be able to perform the activity, you need competencies. Okay. So that's a general thing. For example, if you have to talk to the stakeholders to capture requirements, you're going to use interview as and what is the competency you need? Anyone? Yeah. Which one? Which one? Which task? Which skill? Which competency specifically will you need to be able to interview? Sorry?
Critical thinking, decision making.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. I can see verbal, soft skills, communication. Okay. Communication. Okay. SWOT analysis. Listening. Correct. Prasanna. Active listening. Very, very important part of talking to stakeholders. Active listening is what? You are not just listening. You are understanding you by listening and you are actively participating in the discussion. That is called active listening. Very, very critical skill of stakeholder. You also need to have facilitation skills because you're going to facilitate them to answer the questions which you are asking. Okay. So these are basically things which a business analyst should be aware. It's like a placeholder. It's like saying a department name, something like that, right? But what happens inside is described by the okay. And for each activity, you need knowledge of the techniques to be able to perform the activities and competencies to have that requisite skills to be able to perform. Okay, that is how you have to study the new syllabus. So activities are like this. So let's say, for example, domain one, understanding business analysis. That is the domain one. Under that, there is one activity called define business analysis, describe its role, and outline the key act. Okay, so it starts from the really basics of uh, business analysis and also gets the due weightage for entry level. It's not that these things are not there in BABOK. It is there in BABOK also. If you read some of the chapters in the beginning, it is there. But in terms of importance, there's no importance to those areas. 5% weightage. Now this has completely changed. So in domain one, which has a 20% weightage, there are 4 activities. So each activity itself gets 5% weightage. Okay, so that is important change. An example of another domain is mindset for effective business analysis. You see what are the activities under. It says adopt an empowering mindset, meaning how as a business analyst, what kind of a mindset you need to have so that you can be effective as a business analyst, right? So one of the very basic thing which a business analyst need, I mean, obviously I can't discuss everything now, but just to give you an example, as a business analyst, when you look at a change, how do you look at a change? Is it something which is an opportunity for, so I'm giving you 2-3 options, you tell me which is the right option. You look at that change as an opportunity for your company to earn more money. Number 2, you look at as, okay, now I have to do impact analysis and follow the change management process. Third, you look at it as say, okay, this is possibly growth of my client. How do you look at it? Only one answer is correct. So what the mindset for effective business analysis says that you need to look at it from a growth opportunity perspective. Okay, it's a growth which, see, unless the client grows, the vendor will not be able to grow, right? That's a fact. If client doesn't grow, how will they give you business? So your mindset should be to help customer grow further so that you can get more business. Rather than saying, okay, this is a business for me, maybe tomorrow new business might come in. Instead of that, focus on growing the client so that you can get business on a continuous basis. That's called growth mindset, opposed to a fixed mindset. Okay, so this is something which is stressed upon in this particular chapter. Okay, in this particular activity. So as you can see, the whole idea here is not to get you into some very new concepts of business analysis itself, saying, okay, what is requirement architecture or something like that, which was there in BABOK. Rather than that, let's focus on something which is fundamentally important to the profession of business. Okay, so if you read this, so one of the things which you will see is that when you read it and when you try and prepare for the exam, you should start feeling a little better prepared for the role and better equipped for the role. That is the overall mindset and the focus of this new changes in this syllabus. For me, if you ask me to pass a judgment whether it is really meeting that expectation, I don't know right now, because you see, I'm also going through it. I'm also reading it. Maybe I'm much ahead than you, but it doesn't matter. Right now, I want to see it on ground. How does it go? When we teach students, when we teach you and how do you accept it, that will tell whether it is successful or not, right? So right now, I'm just telling you what IIBA is trying to communicate, what it has not communicated, what it's trying to do, and what is inside the changes which are happening. Okay. Any questions so far? Anyone? What are tasks? Okay, there's one question. So Pawan, task is nothing but in BABOK, the older guide, tasks are the how do I tell it? Task, basically each knowledge area is divided into tasks. Okay. So basically when you follow a particular knowledge area, you perform these tasks. So there are 30 tasks in the BABOK knowledge area. You have to still read all of these, even in the news. See, it looks to be difficult right now. Okay. But see, it also depends on the teaching style, because that is what I was trying to tell you, is that I am working on trying to create a structure which is not bigger than the previous effort. It is similar, and so that you don't have to spend multiple months to be preparing for the ECBA exam. Okay, so that is what I've been working on. So the structure is ready, the PPTs are ready, even the guide is almost ready. So you'll get all of that. So it is going to join in. Okay, so in the couple of slides back, I was explaining you the structure, right? There are domains, there are activities, there are techniques, and there are competencies. So that's the framework which I've created. Okay, so that it's easier and more manageable as a teaching model. Okay, yeah. Somebody was asking a question. Please go ahead.
Yeah. What about those that the earlier batch that has gone through the ECBA? Is this going to affect us in any way since we were not like the syllables are now being changed?
Correct. It is going to affect you because after 21st of July, the syllabus is different now, right? So the questions will be on the new syllabus.
So yeah, the learning pattern.
Yes, it is different. As you can see, the syllabus is quite different. The focus itself has changed quite dramatically. So if you studied the previous edition, you'll find it more difficult because it will be you have to unlearn and then you learn new things. People who are just doing it for the first time, it doesn't make a difference, right? Either they prepare for the old or new. But people who are prepared with their old syllabus, now you're shifting to a new one, you'll find it a little tricky to move to the new.
So how do we catch up with the updates? I'm part of the first June batch, and Richie is almost rounding off with us. How do we catch up with the updates so we don't miss anything, we don't lack anything?
You re-attend the batches whenever the chapters for ECBA syllabus is now going to be covered. You re-attend the classes. That's the simplest way to handle it. You don't try to take any extra effort. Just re-attend, and you'll be ready with the new syllabus.
So how do we re-attend? How do we do that?
Talk to any of the your course support executive you have in your LMS connection, right? You can directly talk to that person on WhatsApp.
Okay, so I should tell her that I need to re-attend the badges because of the new syllabus that has been set up.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for creating that facility for us, sir, for re-attending the new syllabus classes.
Yeah, no problem. In fact, not only ECB new syllabus, you can attend anything, anytime in the future.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Okay, so there are multiple questions here. I will take up all these questions in the end. Okay. Yeah, so I was coming. Some of the questions are based on exam questions. So I think it's better that I first cover that and then I'll take question. Now, the most important part, the question and the exam format. So the number of questions remain same. 50 questions. Even the previous exam, there were 50 questions. Even now, there are 50 questions. There's absolutely no change. Okay, but the time duration for the exam is now 75 minutes instead of 60 minutes. And why that is so? That is now the questions are more scenario based. Okay, so we need more time to read it and more time to answer. So the only thing which has changed is number of the duration is increased. Exam remains, number of questions remain the same. The pattern remains the same. 4 options per question, no multiple answers, correct? No negative marking. And it is online proctored exam through PSI. That is, all of these things are same, except the duration of the question, exam. Now the format. So the old ECBA format, if you see, one of the important, this is a question asked in the previous exam. One of the important consideration in identifying and engaging the stakeholder is 4 options. Now, this is more like a knowledge-based question. Okay, do you know this concept? Do you know what is stakeholder engagement? If yes, you'll be able to answer. Okay, so the focus was on what it is and the recall. Now the question, same question, is slightly differently asked. A stakeholder is having difficulty articulating their needs during a requirements elicitation workshop. How should you approach this? Now the focus is not on what and recall. So you're not recalling the concept which you have learned. Now what you're saying, now what you are expected to do, whatever you learned, based on that, react to the situation and say what could be the most appropriate answer. Okay, this is the primary change in the pattern of the exam. So it will have options which are related to how do you react. It's more like reasoning based, scenario based, and focusing on how and why. Let's see one more question. What is the one reason assumptions are identified and defined? So again, this is about what and read. In old format, we read assumptions are basically input to the risks. So answer was manage associate. Now, not the same question, slightly different question. But now the question type will be during UAT. UAT, for people who are not aware, when a client tests the ready software. That's called UAT. A key feature does not function as expected. Like something, let's say sign up was supposed to happen, but it did not. As a BA, what is the first step you should take? Halt all testing activities so you can focus on resolving the issue. Document the issue and discuss next steps with the implementation team. Escalate the problem to senior management for the input on the resolution. Continue testing other features and add the non-functioning feature to the risk register. Now, this is something which is a real life scenario. Okay, this is not something which is just bookish. That is the way questions are now going. Okay, so what you have to do, you have to use your understanding of whatever you study in the book or in the class, and then apply the most logical answer. By the way, which one is the correct answer in this case? I mean, what do you think is the correct answer? It says, what is the first step? Please note, first step. It is not saying everything. It's just saying first step. That's the key to give the answer. So many people have said 4. I think majority are saying 2, which is correct. There's the first step, but then you will continue the testing after. So actually, this is the step 1, this is the step. But because they asked for the first step has to be the documentation. See, you need to take that gap and then pass it on to the development team saying fix it. And then we'll continue with the test. Okay. So this is something which is the fundamental change in the entire syllabus. So on one hand, so there are 2 things which you need to look at. One is the focus of the syllabus also has changed, which is, for me, it's a very good change. Especially the first 3 chapters, the first 3 domains are very, okay. It focuses more on understanding business analysis, understanding how you should conduct business analysis, how to implement certain things related to BA. Okay, so that's very important. As far as the question is concerned, I mean, it is obviously IIBA's choice as to how they want to award the certification, what kind of level they expect the certification aspirants to have. So that's their choice. I'm in no position to say anything on that. But syllabus change, very, very welcome change. And I think whosoever is going to study it, you will get more benefit out of the syllabus and the preparation. So as study material, 3 things: Business Analyst Standard, BABOK Guide 3. Not everything in BABOK Guide 3, the techniques, the tasks, these 2 things, and competencies. And the exam blueprint, which I showed you, which is basically a syllabus. And some mapping of the elements. Okay. So these 3 things you need, nothing else. And of course, the question banks for practice. So as somebody who's going to prepare for the exam, what's in it for you? So study approach has to change. Now, don't even think about memorizing anything because you can't. The questions are very different. BACCM, that is those 6 terms, you have to put a lot of focus. Everywhere, whatever activities are happening, they are connected to these 6 things. Now, I'll show you that in a bit. That is the last thing which I want to show. And practice with scenario-based questions. So you need to understand the concept. So what we are going to do is we'll have 3 levels of tests. 1, the matchmaking. Then we'll have a chapter level test, which is more for understanding and testing your conceptual knowledge. And then we'll have full length test, which will be more like scenarios. Okay. So before I take up the questions, let me show you the last. Yeah. So this is a little confusing for the way they have done this. So you see, this is a map in terms of the domains and the activities. So each domain will have these activities which business analysts will do. We saw the activities for second. Now, after that, instead of saying that, so I don't know whether it will confuse you or not, but I'm trying to explain it in as simple terms as possible. Okay. So basically, these are the 9 domains. 3, first one, and then change, need, and all. Now, if you see, change has 4 activities, need has 4 activities. Okay. Now, these activities, this change domain is not described anywhere. You saw the business analysis standard book, right? It doesn't have these domains described. The syllabus has these first three domains, and then directly goes to the tasks. So the moment you start picking up standard guide, and you'll say, okay, where are these 6 domains? So they are neither in the BABOK guide. There's no mention of domains. I mean, except the first chapter, there is nowhere these domains are mentioned. So what happened to the domains, the change and the need and all of that? Because they have a weightage of 10% and they are 4 active. What happened to these active? How will you prepare for that? Right? That question will come to your mind. So what has happened is that change is not an independent domain. Okay. What it means is that when business analysts do activities, in multiple activities or tasks, they use change and need and also. So instead of studying change as a domain, what they have done is they have said, okay, the domains, the tasks, these are tasks which are taken from BABOK. Each task is connected to an activity. And this activity numbering, if you see, it is coming from here, which means if you see this 4.1 and 9.4, it means that when you plan business analysis approach, you use the need as a concept as well as context as a concept. Okay, so this is, I'll leave it that. Even if you have not understood, don't get confused, because this is something which requires some explanation. But I just wanted to tell you that if you take the book and suddenly you realize that the domain is missing, so don't get surprised. Okay, so that's all.